Hey, good morning, Warhawks. This is Colonel Wilson again, episode 31 of Freeform Friday. It's great to be back here on Lackland. I have been, as I mentioned on episode 30, I've been out for a while, so it's nice to be back home again. Chief back from Keesler. We're not doing it from a closet, and I think hopefully everybody can see us with the camera straight up, and hopefully won't lose the feed this time around. That was a pretty challenging environment to do Freeform in. So anyway. Okay, so hey, we're here with a couple of special guests. We've got Lieutenant Frank Rosette from the 343rd Training Squadron, who is here to talk to us. He is our wing and actually the Lackland overall rep for the Air Force Assistance Fund this year. We are kicking off, we are doing the 37 Training Wings official kickoff for the Air Force Assistance Fund. And we started here on Freeform Friday in good fashion. So Lieutenant, Air Force Assistance Fund, we all know about Air Force Aid Society and the impact that it has on our airmen. A lot of times we're able to give grants to airmen that are in need. It's always been a great tool for leadership teams and first sergeants specifically when they see airmen that are in need. But would you talk, I know that's what I think of when I think of Air Force Assistance Fund, and the fact that I give them a certain amount on my paycheck, out of my paycheck every month. But you want to go back to the root of the four causes for the Air Force Assistance Fund and really what it's all about.
Yes, sir. So there are four overall charities that the Air Force Assistance Fund helps out every year. The first one, as you mentioned, sir, is the Air Force Aid Society that was founded all the way back in 1942 that provides direct support for our active duty personnel, whether it be through COVID relief. Most recently with Winter Storm Uri, our people were able to get grants if they had damages through the winter storm that we just experienced. But there's also a couple other charities that most people don't know about. The Air Force Enlisted Villages, the Enlisted Village, is a affordable retirement home for our retired military enlisted personnel and their surviving spouses. Should they need it, should they no longer be able to support themselves and they need to go into a retired community. Additionally, they have the Air Force Villages, Charitable Villages Foundation, which is the same exact thing, but for our officer corps. Should they retire and they're unable to live on their own anymore, they have the assisted living facilities for our retired officers and their spouses as well, should they need it. And then the final foundation that you can donate to is the General and Mrs. Courtesy LeMay Foundation, which provides monetary support for our retired retired military personnel and their spouses, if they are able to still live on their own, but let's say bills have started piling up because they are retired and maybe their loved ones pass away. They provide those grants to those personnel. So there's four charities altogether, and the big one, as I said, is the Air Force Aid Society. That's the one we all know and well. And that one in particular, last year just alone, they were able to provide $12.5 million in relief to our active duty personnel, and over 26,000 individual airmen they were able to directly support because of the donations that they received from our personnel through the Air Force Assistance Fund.
So obviously I mentioned Air Force Aid is something I think that all four of us, we haven't even got a chance to introduce Chief Mark, so we'll do that here in just a sec. But that's something that impacts us. I had the opportunity, I was traveling around in my previous assignment, and I got to go down to Florida, and I got to walk through the Air Force enlisted village, And Brooke McClain, retired Command Chief Brooke McClain, is the CEO of that organization. And just to hear about the waiting lists of people that are in need of our Air Force veterans that would love to be in those types of places, and I walk through, and they're really nice places for them to reside. And again, they don't have the ability to necessarily take care of themselves anymore because they're getting up there in the years and they're just in need. And so again, that's another great opportunity. Having walked through that, I feel very, very blessed. We got two chiefs here. I gotta ask, Air Force Aid, I'm sure that's something that you both have used. Chief Marks, so I'll introduce her real quick. She's the superintendent of the 320th Training Squadron over there with Lieutenant Colonel Carter and the Gators, roll. And so, Chief, have you ever had any experience? I put her on the spot because we didn't even tell her we're going to ask her about Air Force Aid, but I can't imagine, Chief Butcher, if you have something, the two of you, all the years of experience, do you guys have any experiences that you want to just share and any insight on the Air Force Assistance Fund?
The Air Force Assistance Fund is definitely an important opportunity that impacts us directly as airmen. And so as a prior first sergeant, I can tell you plenty of times that we've had to utilize those services to assist our airmen in need. And also as a young woman, I personally use the Air Force Assistance Fund for support as well. So highly encourage everyone, if you can, please consider contributing to AFAF.
Absolutely, I agree with Chief. Similar circumstances as well. First of all, I believe this is an investment in us, right, as airmen. And it's, the Air Force Aid Society, that's huge, right? And that tends to be a little bit more for us serving on active duty, and as LT had mentioned, there's still contributing to us, right? Those are our veterans and their spouses, right? Much like Chief Marks, I've probably first sergeant experience, and as a supervisor, I can tell you multiple times over, have utilized the Air Force Aid Society to help people bridge, in a crisis, right? Get a 0% loan that they can pay back over a few months to a year, with reasonable payments. But my family has used it before too. Back when, I remember during my first deployment in our Air Force, this is way back, and my wife, her dad had a car accident in the same kind of circumstance, right? That we needed a few extra $100 just to kind of to get her, on a flight to go be with her dad, and paid back over a few months, 0%. It was reasonable payments. So absolutely an investment in us. I really appreciate anybody and anything you can give helps, even if it's $1 a month, or a one time. You're still doing a one time. So every dollar counts, and it all goes back into Airmen collectively, active duty and retired forces.
So Lieutenant, how would someone go about giving if they wanted to give?
So there's two main ways if you want to give. The first way is every squadron has a unit project officer who should be going out there and soliciting to your unit and getting the Air Force Assistance Fund out there to your squadron. You can reach out to the unit project officer and they can tell you in the myriad of ways. Air Force Assistance Fund has gone largely e-giving for the first time, so they've made it easier now than ever to donate. But if for some reason you don't know who your unit project officer is, you can just go to afassistance.org. The link will be in the comments, and you can find Lackland Air Force Base and donate to those charities through afassistance.org directly online.
Thanks, Lieutenant. Yeah, great job. Great job. And so again, hey, thanks again, not only for taking care of the 37 training meeting, but all of Joint Base San Antonio Lackland, again, as the overall project officer. I don't know that that's what you knew you were buying into exactly at the time, but here you are. So taking care of Security Hill, taking care of AFI MSC, taking care of the Kelly side, taking care of all of it. Thanks so much for doing that.
Appreciate the opportunity to come and talk, sir.
So Chief Marks is here with us, special guest, love it. So we are here celebrating Women's History Month. Month of March is Women's History Month. We're kind of doing it at the tail end, I think, not for any one reason other than I think we've been gone and we've been running around pretty hard, but we did not want to miss the opportunity to highlight the month. So just a little history on Women's History Month. Authorized by Congress back in 1981 and then implemented in 1982 under the Reagan administration. The first Air Force, so that's how we came to have Women's History Week that then transitioned into Women's History Month. But just another note, the first female airman was Esther Blake, Staff Sergeant Esther Blake, who was enlisted on July 8th, 1948, after obviously the birth of our Air Force in 1947. So we always think of the Air Force as kind of pushing the boundaries, always progressive, always moving forward a little bit faster than everybody else. That's what we think, and I think we think that because it's true. My personal opinion, but here we are for Women's History Month, and so I'll share my thoughts on Women's History Month. I have had some really great mentors throughout my career, and one that I wanted to personally talk about is Colonel Elizabeth Brown, who made all the difference in my life. She was a wonderful supervisor. I was in the air staff, and I was a major at the time, and she just was such a great human, and we bonded immediately, and she just helped me in my career and helped me with certain milestones. And the other thing is it was so personal because Colonel Brown actually, our daughter Claire was born, and she was born with a fairly significant heart defect. And while she could have been like, hey, the mission goes on, you take care of yourself, she wasn't. She called me every single day to ask how Claire was doing and ask how Lisa and I were doing. And 3 open heart surgeries later, our little girl's doing wonderful. But it's stories like that, and it wasn't about her being a female airman. It was just about her being a great leader and a great commander. And I think that's what really that's the legacy of the impact that our female forces have in our air forces. They're not great female airmen; they're great airmen, right? And that's what it really comes down to. But we have Chief, who's obviously one of our senior enlisted leaders in our wing here in the 320 Training Squadron. But Chief, we had you come in today to talk a little bit about Women's History Month and what it means to you and some of your experiences. I'd love to hear from you if you were willing. Obviously, you're here, so you are. But thanks for being here today.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure.
So as Colonel Wilson said, I'm Chief Master Sergeant Pamela Marks. I am 320th Training Squadron Superintendent. Been in the Air Force for 20 years, and the beautiful part about it is I'm seeing my life come full circle, if you will, because when I enlisted in the Air Force, I also graduated with the 320 training squadron, so it's pretty cool to be back 20 years later, leading the next generation of airmen and guardians as they journey through the Air Force. So, obviously, I'm a female airman, right? But oftentimes, I don't focus on the female part. I focus on the part that I'm an airman in the United States Air Force and very proud to be here. So, coming up in my Air Force career, there are countless women who I have looked up to, who I've known personally, or whom I have viewed from afar and admired from afar. The tenacity and the willingness to serve. One of those people specifically that I'd like to talk about today, who has helped me in my career, is General Linda Hurd.
Oh yeah.
And during the time I was stationed at Langley Air Force Base, I was working in the 735th Supply Chain Operations Group. And what I enjoyed about Colonel Hurd is she was just so humble. You know, I'm a mom, I have 3 kids, a wife, and I saw at the time Colonel Hurd, General Hurd, just do everything with grace. She had kids, obviously she had a big mission to oversee. She had a father that she was taking care of as well, and to see her come in every single day, not miss a beat, still take care of 700 airmen, still take care of the aircraft fleet, to ensure that the mission goes on worldwide, was just amazing to see. And it gave me that second wind as a mom, trying to do it all, to keep going. So I have countless stories of female airmen who have just shown me the way and helped me to get to where I am. I also want to mention one of my first supervisors, Staff Sergeant Jessica Sweet, when she rested in peace. She too, mom, wife, leader, and she did it with grace. Right? I'm sure she was tired coming in, taking care of us knucklehead Aaron, but she did it with grace, and she showed us how to lead, and how to lead with family, and how to be humble, and how to remain teachable. A lot of foundational principles that she taught me that I carry with me today. So
I can sense a little bit of emotion even there, just talking about it. Thanks for sharing that story with us. Chief Butcher, your thoughts?
Absolutely. You know, first of all, I love Chief Marks, what you said. It's so inspiring to me, right? You know, in women's history, we're on pride, and you know, you mentioned just a moment ago, like, hey, you know, female airmen, but just airmen. I love that. You know, I don't see Chief Marks as a female airman. I just see my fellow airman, my fellow chief. I love that. I love where we've come as an Air Force since 1948. Right? This is awesome. There's 4 women I'd love to point out right now. All airmen. First is my wife, former airman. She did 8 years in our Air Force. She is my hero, and she is my Wonder Woman, and absolutely, golly, I would not be here without my wife. And you know, the things that I saw her juggle, you know, that we juggled as a family, and especially I mentioned a few minutes ago, my first deployment, well, she was active duty at that time, right? We did get that Air Force Assistance Fund. We had a job, you know, so she was airman, mom. She covered down the dad role while I was gone, right? And you know, still a daughter, still man, just amazing. I hope you're watching, Priya, to give you shouts out and much love in front of thousands and thousands of Warhawk fans. So, next person I'd like to highlight is my wife's mom, mother-in-law, Beverly Cheshire, former defender. And I think about what my wife has done in our generation of service as airmen, and then I think about my mother-in-law, what she went through. So again, mill, and my father-in-law was also a defender, and I think about what they went through the first Gulf War era. You know, probably the same unique challenges that me and my wife Priya had to experience with our family. And I'd also like to highlight Miss Vicky Fragamelli. She is still serving right now today. She is at the Air Force Services Center, right down the road from us. And the unique story about Miss Fragamelli, we served together at Kadima. She was a deputy when I first got there, and we split, the largest squadron of the Air Force into two, and she actually was hired as a civilian leader of one of the force support squadrons. Miss Fraganelli's story, and what she did for me to help me learn the FSS enterprise. She's been in the Air Force since, over 30-something years. She has started out as barback at the enlistment program. She climbed the ladder every position. She became a club manager, and she became a flight chief, and she became, just all these different positions within that FSS structure. Nobody knows the business of an FSS like Miss Vicky Fraganelli. So I hope that she's watching as well, because she had, a major impact on me as the leader in our Air Force. So I'm going to give a shout out there.
Yeah, it's countless examples, and there's countless examples. I think I'm sure the lieutenant probably has his stories here too, but I think again the point here is it's not about necessarily females versus males. It's bringing us all together and having a better understanding of each other. We've had that discussion so many times, diversity and inclusion. That's what it comes down to, is we are a common unit with a common mission and a common purpose. And while we have differences, we're all together here now, and we're all making that mission happen every day. And it's not about treating each other differently. It's about treating each other with dignity and respect, and treat everybody the same.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I did say fourth, right? The fourth shout out I want to
this
give,
one,
and I
this
hope
one.
she's tuned in too. It's Tech Sergeant Teresa Devine. She was my military training instructor back in 1996. My goodness. I don't know what rank she retired at. I hope she was a chief one day in our Air Force, but I'll tell you what, Sergeant Devine, she molded me into an airman. And I just, I can't, during women's history, I can't help but think of my MTI this way. So, thank you, sir.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks again, Chief. And we're going to talk about a few other things, so if the two of you want to jump in, feel free, okay? So we're going to talk about vaccinations next. That's obviously a hot topic here in the state of Texas, here in Joint Base San Antonio. We were able to start having a large portion of our Warhawks immunized this week, those that were still on a voluntary basis. So again, we've mentioned the DoD priority schema in previous weeks. Priority schema 1 Bravo included our military training instructors because they were at a higher risk based upon the training environment that they were working in each and every day. The rest of our Warhawks, not the rest, but a large number of them fall under 1 Charlie. And so we started, and those are mission essential personnel, we started immunizing those last Thursday. And then we've been doing, I think Wilford Hall has done a good deal to the tune of, at times, about 1,000 people a day from our wing. So here we are towards the end of March, and having vaccines distributed, I think starting to answer a lot of questions. Again, we had to here in Joint Base San Antonio, the demographic looks a little different. We have a high retiree population base, and so we had to make sure that those folks got taken care of before we hit some of the less at-risk personnel. And so that's a great news here for us. Definitely moving forward. I know there's a lot of discussion, a lot of questions on dependents at this point, because it's just natural. Hey, when you're at one priority level, when are you going to get to the next one, right? And so what I would say is, it's not time-driven at this point. It's milestone-driven, and it's supply-driven. So under 1 Charlie, under the DoD priority schema, I believe is priority 2, and that's where our dependents fall, is under priority 2. So you can see that a large portion of our wing is being vaccinated now under 1 Charlie, which tells us we are in 1 Charlie to some extent. And we're also starting to see the supply chain really picking up when it comes to with all the different approvals of Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson. So that just lends itself to more vaccines available. The other thing I'd say is the state of Texas now has really done a great job with its vaccination program. It is immunizing all individuals within the state of Texas age 16 and up. And so there's a number, unfortunately I don't have off the top of my head, but there's ways to go out and find out where those vaccines are available off base. As a matter of fact, a large portion of our personnel here in the 37th Training Week have been getting their vaccines off base because they were available a little bit quicker at times than here at Wilford Hall and here in Joint Base San Antonio. So we encourage those that want to get vaccines that haven't come up on the priority schema quite yet to go off base if it's available. And for our dependents, go ahead and start looking out there. Absolutely, if you can get a vaccine off base, do that. Just know that if you can't or it's too challenging and you're a volunteer, that it's going to be available on base, hopefully here in the near future. When that will happen will be, again, milestone driven and not time driven at this point. Great. Okay. had a quick visit this week from the Agiligty Prime team. Agiligty Prime is working with AppWorks, which is a pretty state-of-the-art, technologically driven, innovation-driven type organization. Agiligty Prime is looking at a couple really cool concepts, and we actually have our 344 training squadron and our career enlisted aviators that are part of that Agiligty Prime process. They came in, they visited our 344 training squadron this week. So a big welcome to the Agiligty Prime team. Thanks for coming to visit. We're really excited about some of this new technology that they're looking at. Can't really get into a lot of details here, but just know that it's that we're kind of on the cutting edge of technology here in the 37th training. Also had some big award announcements here this week.
Sure.
Do you want to go over them? You got them in front of you there?
I do.
All right.
All right.
How about it?
Well, the first shout out we have for this, congratulations, outstanding EPME enlisted professional military education Center of the Year category. Our very own IAFA, Inter-American Air Forces Academy. Well done.
And
Viva IAFA!
Viva. So IAFA just keeps rolling, awards just keep rolling in for IAFA because they had we presented at our commander's call this week the IMSO award there for the Air Force. So great job by our team in IAFA. We also had the outstanding total force enlisted professional military education senior NCO of the year in category, Master Sergeant Diego Ladino Restrepo from, of course, IAFA. Congratulations. Congratulations. And then we had our 12 outstanding Airman of the Year, Chief. We had Master Sergeant Garcia, who was PCS, but was a part of the 37th Training Wing at that point in time. So he won for the senior NCO category at the 2nd Air Force. And he was in BMT, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. Yes, he is
37th Training Support Squadron. There you go.
And yes, so he won 2nd Air Force. He's competing at AETC right now. So best of luck to Sergeant Garcia. And I probably should preface too. I think when our IAFA team awards, those were AETC awards. They are competing at Air Force level now. So.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Except for the IMSO award.
The IMSO
that was
was
actually they won at the Air Force level. So. Also, talk about Warhawk Cares Campaign. So we got Tech Sergeant Heather Truitt from the 319 Training Squadron over in basic military training. Has really led a big effort to collect a lot of different items, household items, different types of supplies, resources for our Fisher House in the local area. So again, the 37th Training Wing, we talked about this quite a bit. That we care, we're out part of the community, we're out supporting other organizations. So just a big thanks to Tech Sergeant Truitt, who's been out there running Warhawk Cares Campaign. So great work. All right, I think we had some questions this week, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, before I do, so this is Women's History Month. We transition now into April, which is Month of the Military Child. I have children. You have children. Chief says she has children. Lieutenant, any children?
No, sir.
Not yet. Okay. Well, you know what? We can all celebrate. Someday you'll have that opportunity. But so anyway, I know just leading into that discussion starting next month. You know, I know the sacrifices that my children have made for my career, and for example, my son Lucas, you know, he PCS between his junior and senior year. So there's a lot of sacrifices that our families make on our behalf and allow us to continue to serve our country. So look forward to talking more about that. Maybe dragging some of those kids in here for their Freeform. That should be fun. So I think the first question that we had, Brittany, did you want to ask it?
Yes, sir. I believe you already answered it. It was about when will the vaccine be available to dependents. So you already kind of hit on that one.
I think, you know, with reading the tea leaves a little bit, I think the production levels and availability levels in April and May are going to be drastically larger, exponentially larger than they have been up to now. So I think that's good news. So I think you can kind of look at generally and speaking in that time frame, that gives you a pretty good reason to think maybe it'll be there, but maybe even a little sooner. We'll see.
Yes, sir. The second question we have is, how can someone find out about what civilian developmental education opportunities are available?
Yeah, I've been talking about civilian developmental education. Chief and I have been going through, we've had commander's calls this week, and we continue into next week with each of our groups in our main staff agency, and that's one of the topics I discussed is civilian developmental education is one of those things. You know, we get asked all the time, Mr. Sereda and I do, you know, hey, what is it that takes to get promoted as a civilian? And we walk through kind of as a hiring authority, as a military member, I also hire civilians, as you can imagine. When we do that, what's kind of some of the criteria used. And one of the things that I do use is professional education, professional military, professional civilian developmental education. And so we had a call that went out here over the last couple of months, and we didn't have necessarily the response that we had hoped for. To that end, to answer this question, you can always go out to MyVector. And on MyVector, there's all kinds of resources. You can sign up as long as you're a CAC ID card holder, DoD ID card holder. You can sign up for MyVector, get an account, get in there, and you can see all the developmental opportunities. You can get the PSDMs, I think, for when the suspense is. It's all a self-nomination process. They go online on MyVector. You self-nominate, and then that nomination, depending on what school you'll go to, will go to a senior reviewing official. If it's an in-residence program, it'll come up to me, and I'll review it. And we'll say, I'll give a recommendation or a push. It'll go to Air Force Personnel Center, and then you'll get selected based upon the merits of your package. So from what I recall, most of them just require your resume, and most of our civilians have resumes so that they have on standby anyway. So there's really not a lot to it other than figuring out what it is you want to do. And like I said, it will definitely make you more competitive for other job opportunities and promotions down the road. So, did we have any other questions that came in?
Yes, sir. We had a couple come in on the newsfeed. Somewhat of a two-part similar question. They're asking about graduation, BMT graduations, and being open into the families, as well as once students are in tech schools and what it looks like for families visiting them in that.
In tech schools. So, I think we get this question every week is when are we going to open up BMT graduation to family members? I can't give a definitive timeline, but the bottom line is the safety of our trainees and the safety of our cadre and our instructors and our BMT personnel is the thing that we're most concerned about. And when we feel like it's safe, we'll open it up. Right now, we're still at HPCon Bravo Plus. We still have COVID throughout our country, and so the challenge with BMT graduations is we are bringing people in to see their loved ones from all over the country and really all over the world at times. And so we have to be in a good place where we feel like those that we're bringing in don't pose a safety risk to our training population, because we've worked very hard to make sure they are kept safe all throughout the training pipeline in 7.5 weeks. Same for technical training. Once they graduate from BMT after 7.5 weeks, they go off to their technical training schoolhouse. Here, like Lieutenant Rosette, they will go to, let's say, the 343rd Training Squadron, and they're going to become a defender, the largest AFSC producing schoolhouse in the Air Force, and we have to make sure they're kept safe as well. So, when will that happen? Again, when we feel like it's safe for our training population, and it's safe for our product. And I don't think we're quite there yet, but it certainly looks like around the nation the numbers are improving. Around JBSA, the numbers are improving. But again, it's not a San Antonio issue, because the folks that we're bringing in are from all over, and so we just need to see our COVID numbers around the country start to go down, and we need to see the health protection conditions start to improve.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions?
No, sir. That is all.
That's it. All right. Well, so thanks so much, Lieutenant. Thanks, Chief. Loved having you guys. We got to come over and do some of our future ones over in your neck of the woods. But it's great to have a representative from the 37th Training Group and the 737 Training Group here with us today. Chief, thanks as always. Any final thoughts or any final words?
No fun thoughts. Happy Friday. I hope everybody enjoys the weekend.
All right. With that, we are out. Warhawks train to win.